Alright guys, today I'll be reviewing the Slash VXL from Traxxas. I've had this car for a while now, so I think it can be reviewed honestly. And any problems that would be evident may have shown up by now. I've cartwheeled it a good few times. So as you can see, this is the Greg Odler edition. And I actually got it for cheap because the way that I got this, I didn't have a choice of color. They just boxed up the one that they chose, and it saved me about 20 bucks. So that was really good, actually. Plus, I plan to make this into a police car eventually when I have enough money to do so. And with all the decals removed, this just goes right back to being a black truck with a silver line, like a silver secondary line going down the middle and stopping at the roof. And if I just replace like 4-wheel parts with maybe the Philadelphia Police Department or something of that sort, the LAPD, probably just for, just a nice little, I don't know, the LAPD, most people think of the LAPD, at least I do, when I think of cop cars for some reason, which is weird because I live on the other side of the country. Anyway, let's go ahead and take the body off, and what we have here is, apart from this fan, you'll have to ignore autofocus too. It's not cooperating. Come on. There's my finger. Follow the finger and focus on the car. Thank you. Alright. As you can see here, this is the brushless version. That's the VXL. That's the Volinian motor, 3500 kilovolt motor, with Traxxas max cable, 12 gauge max cable. The fan here I explained in a previous video if you want to know more about that. And leading to your metal gearbox Magnum 272 transmission. I'm still running the stock gearing. I know you really can't see that with the cover on, but it's just the stock gearing. And you have your progressive rate, light powder coated shocks. They're not the best for racing, but I kind of like their initial super softness because I do a lot of just bashing with this vehicle. The nearest track is 254 miles that way from my location, so racing doesn't work for me anyway. But that's, the shock. Same up front, just a shorter length. So there's easy. The spring rate's a little bit different. It's a little bit stiffer from the start, actually, which I find weird. So they really did need to put a bit of a stiffer starting spring in here. As you can see, I've got a fair amount of preload space here on there. And of course, the warning label about low voltage detection. Just everything that you would expect to see if you looked at the car at all before you bought it. But then you have your VXL-3S 3-cell LiPo ready, any motor type you want, electronic speed control, which of course has your more 12 gauge max cable, the 3 leads running to the motor, of course the 2 with the Traxxas connector on, which I like them actually. The Traxxas connectors are nice and easy to grip. They're real easy to plug in, and they don't seem to heat up or restrict any current flow as stated. I wouldn't expect them to. I mean, they're gold-plated copper slabs that are about 1 millimeter thick, if not a little bit more, because they actually embed into the plastic a little bit. And of course, I'm still running the stock battery, because again, I didn't get this thing too terribly long ago. So stock battery, 8.4 volt, 3000 milliamp hour nickel metal hydride battery. Patent stuff. No one really cares about that. Made in Taiwan. Then your antenna leading to your waterproof receiver box. And once again, autofocus is not being a friend. Let's go to a bit more light. There we go. It seems to like a bit more light, so I just pointed a shop light directly at it. Now we're going to get shadows, but hopefully it'll help autofocus a little bit. It's not. Wonderful, wonderful autofocus. How I hate you. Alright, and of course, as everyone complains, the official licensed BF Goodrich Mud Terrain TA tires. Thank you, autofocus. You're really aggravating me. They look awesome. They feel awesome. They're a little bit stiff. But again, I do bashing, so these big old knobby tread designs actually work better for me, because I'd rather have some longevity than absolute maximum grip, because I really don't need it. And if I ever went into rougher terrain than just grass and pavement and a bit of loose dirt, I'd get something better. But really, I don't mind them, because I've abused this thing pretty well, and they grip fine on the pavement. They're actually pretty good on pavement. They're not as good as standard racing slicks, but they're good enough for the truck, especially because, again, I'm not racing with it. Now that's the front, and those with the rear, it's a bit more worn, actually significantly more worn, but it's not really bad. It's only about maybe 0.5 millimeter down compared to this. Mainly what you're missing are the little lines that autofocus just hid from view. Find them. I could play this game. These little tread lines in here, mainly what you're missing are those, because they're not very down and deep, as you can see. The deep ones are still there, but the shallow ones are kind of just turning into divots, really. And of course, your Nerf bars, the white base coat, or I guess you call it a top coat, depending on how you look at it, on the body paint, rubs off on the Nerf bars. That's a little bit of a negative. So, we've gone over the basic truck. Now for some positives and negatives. Positives, of course. So far, if you've run brushless cars before, positives. The Valenian system, just as a whole. The motor was getting a little hot. I really couldn't blame it, because the ambient temperature in the sun was already about 124 during the summer months so far, and the pavement temperature is about 113, 115. With this fan on, running it pretty much full throttle all the time in grass, it runs about 118, which is lower than the temperature in the sun. A little bit higher than the tarmac temperature, but that's not bad. Before that, it was running about 150. I don't know why this fan makes such a big difference. I didn't expect it to, but it really did. Because I could have trimmed out the body, but I already had a fan, and it pulls pretty much a negligible amount of current through it, so you don't lose much battery life at all. Alright, another positive. The radio system as well. Not as customizable and easily adjustable as some of the more top-end radio systems as far as they go, but really good nonetheless. It's nice and ergonomic, except I can see left-handed people not liking this, even if you're left-handed, unless you hold your controller like this, which I know some people who do. But I could see that's rather favorable for right-handed people with that little thumb ridge there. This is nice and smooth, no creaking or binding both ways, and of course you can adjust it 50-50 or 70-30. You got your multi-function knob, which can be accessed to do a whole slew of things like dual rates and exponentials on both of your channels. With these two buttons, your menu button and your set button, and we're using a whole menu tree. And of course your steering trim, on and off light indicator, so notice there. It's not very bright in the sun. Doesn't really matter. A foam grip, steering wheel. As you see, antenna less. There's no antenna. That's about it for that. Receiver, I have no problems with it so far. I mean, this thing will easily drive to where I can't see it before I run out of radio reception. It suits my needs at least. And because I'm bashing and not racing, I hear some people say that there's a slight delay in this system, but I'm not racing, so I don't really even notice it. And if it's there, it's not that bad. Okay. Next positive, the stock battery. I actually get a little bit more. I get around 3,500 milliamp hours into this thing as opposed to the rated 3000. It gets about 110, which is kind of toasty. It's a little bit on the warm side. Considering what I put it through, it's not too bad. It'll last you about 20 minutes of good bashing. And, on charging, you can charge it at 3 amps, no problem. I wouldn't go above that, though. I never charge any battery above 1C anyway, but you could. Battery will just get a little bit warm. It'll shorten the lifespan of your overall battery pack. Alright. Another good thing, the skid plates just all around, and the overall design of the truck. For racing, the high center of gravity is horrible. For bashing, it is amazing. You can do several things with this short course truck that you'd expect to do with a monster truck. Especially if you're talking about a racing short course where the chassis more or less just extends off the bulkhead straight across the bottom, right to the other bulkhead. However, this one goes way up to about 3.5 inches. Matter of fact, see, the camera fits underneath this thing. It's got plenty of ground clearance. Drainage holes all throughout. I mean, everywhere. There's one up under the wires. There's a big one right there. One up here by the servo. Let me see it right there for the focus for me. There it is right there. And of course, some more just all over the truck. I haven't driven the thing through water. I haven't wanted to do all the bearing cleanup that is necessary if you drive it underwater. If you take a look at the underside here, you won't notice anything really spectacular. There's a tubular structure coming off of both the skid plates, and initially I was worried. So the servo just kind of sticks out there and not really protected. I was initially worried about that, but I'm not anymore. There is nothing wrong with it, and I've beaten this thing up pretty bad. And I haven't done anything to it yet. Alright. Let's see. As far as positives go, those are really the only glaring ones, other than being a Slash. Which leads me to the last and most obvious, probably most gone over positive about the Slash, especially if you're a beginner. This thing is like a tank. I have cartwheeled this thing numerous times. As a matter of fact, today, I was going top speed, hit a curb, which is going at 35 miles an hour. I hit a curb, probably not at about 35, because I slid out of control on a little bed of sandy gravel, just real fine gravel that built up on the edge of the cul-de-sac after many years of people driving over it. And so I hit a patch of that, and I slid out of control. I let go of throttle and hit braking, but on that sand I didn't get too much done. This was probably about 25, 30-ish miles an hour, I don't know exactly. So I hit a curb, and the car went flying through the air, came down, and started cartwheeling. It cartwheeled about 10 times. 10 full rotations. Just rolling and rolling and rolling, and I was so afraid of what I was going to see when I came up to it after all that. And you want to see its battle scar? After that big of a cartwheel? Alright, there are a couple. 2 of them, really. Alright, first battle scar, if autofocus will work for me. Alright, that scratch right there. Oh my goodness. I know. I don't know how it manages to hold together with that big of a dent. Yeah. This one's a little bit more significant. Though again, it's on a skid plate and it's on the rear bumper, so let me see though, it's a nice deep gouge going all the way through there. So that one was a bit more severe. Alright. Anyway, there you go. There's the crash damage report. I know, significant. I don't know how it still drives with those 2 monstrous mechanical failures on it after that much cartwheeling. And I know a lot of people say, well, no surprise, it's an off-road Slash. I mean, it's a Slash. So no big surprise there. However, it's a surprise for me because I, before this, did on-road nitro cars. You cartwheeled with them. It was extremely hard to do, but I did it once. You cartwheel with them. you'll be replacing some parts, mainly wheels. Wheels like their wheels like to crack a lot. So, on to some of the negatives. Mainly these are just nitpicky. Because it's two-wheel drive, if you give it too much throttle in grass over time, it wears off the white wall writing. You see it wears it off. Whereas the fronts, they don't do it. Because they just roll through the grass. There's a bit of the O's missing, that's it. As for the rears, it was real bad. Same with the other side of the truck. You see, it's even worse. Mud Arini /A and BF Gurick. Yeah. And again, same story. Front side, perfectly fine. Alright. Another negative I would say. Let's see. I guess for this, we should go to the rear. I mentioned this slightly before. The rear suspension. They did put heavier oil in it, which I was glad to see, because this is the production line of this year, and I think last year's had it too, but it was a bit thicker, heavier weight shock oil in the towers for the VXL version, and I can see why it needed it. This is actually really good stuff, as you can see. It just thumps down, it doesn't have any problem. I've actually left it this way because I've actually enjoyed it, just for general bashing. It's really not too bad. So I kept it. But the complaint, these springs are way too soft in the rear at first. If you take these preload spacers off, it sinks like this. It is ridiculous. Your clearance is about maybe 1.5 inches at the rear at most. Probably not even, more like 3/4 of an inch. It just sinks down with the preloads off. It comes with the 4mm already on. I had to put another 2mm clip on there because it was just still sinking way more than I wanted it to. So that was the only complaint suspension wise, because for bashing I actually like this suspension a fair amount. It's rather enjoyable and fun with all that plush suspension and ample wheel movement. Alright. As for another negative, this one's a little bit nitpicky. It's kind of a double-edged sword. If it wasn't like this, it'd be a bad thing too. But these motor plugs, if you want to do anything like endpoint testing, there are 2 ways you can go around this. 1, take off the gear cover, access the spare gear or the pinion, and take it off. Then you can adjust your endpoints, which is actually the easier way to do, because these plugs right here, these banana plugs, are ludicrous to take off. They require so much force to take off that I'm afraid I'm going to rip the solder joint out of here. It is a little bit ridiculous, but again, it's a dual-edged sword. If they were looser, they risk the chance of falling out. That's about the last thing you want to happen in the middle of a run. So I want to say good job and bad job at the same time, because they are a pain to service or to do anything with. So the easiest way to get around this, if you want to do endpoint testing or whatever, is just to simply take this cover off, remove the pinion set screw, and take it off. Then you can adjust your endpoints as need be. Of course, I don't know why you need to adjust your endpoints that often, but when you want to check them or adjust them, this is a pain to take these off. They require so much force, versus just taking off these 2 screws and the grub screw, it comes right off. Another complaint, this is kind of whining. This isn't even really a complaint, this is just whining. When you first get the car, the shell that comes with it, and this is again a double-edged sword, because you can use thicker bodies because of this, but the shell that comes with it, the thickness of it, and the way the body mounts are, is that when you first put this thing on, without any washers on it at all, it shakes around about 1 millimeter. And you can hear it as you're driving, it'll go shake and rattle all around. So I just put on a set of washers. You could put another one on, and I could put another one on there if I wanted it to be really tight on, but just one washer on all 4 of them works the best. But yeah, double-edged sword, because with it being like that, you could have a thicker body, like one this thick. Although that would be, oh man, that would be ridiculous. Darn near indestructible, but could you imagine having to cut through that pair of Lexan scissors? However, again, that's just nitpicky. Really, about the last complaint I have is something that just about everyone despises: these plastic half shafts. Now I have siliconed them up. They will actually fall right out. If I just take them out, they will fall right out. They produce no binding whatsoever, and I clean them regularly. You have to, or else they start to bind really, really badly. So I took them off, took them apart, cleaned them all up, siliconed them, let them dry, and now they are awesome. They need just about no maintenance now, except for a quick dusting every now and again, but the silicone pretty much stays on there. They are a bit of a pain, but they're not too bad, and they've held up there's some pretty good acceleration, really. Considering the forces that they have to deal with, it's not too bad. And that's it. About the whole review on this truck, really. There's not too much more to report on. And it looks cool. It sounds nice. It's got a good power system through it. And I'd say if you're a beginner, this truck is just as good as if you're experienced, really, unless you're a racer. I would look at this as just a basher. I would probably, even though a lot of trucks have Slash racing classes, and if you want to do that, then go ahead, but out of the box, especially these progressive rate springs, just not really good for racing. And that high center of gravity, unless you're racing with other stock Slashes, really nothing, you won't get anywhere compared to some of the more racy short course trucks with that combination of suspension and high center of gravity. So just a basher, but an awesome basher. I mean, this thing is just so darn tough. I've not broken anything on it at all. Not stripped any gears. The servo's fine, albeit a little bit weak, really, but it's not too bad. The servo saver, of course, gives out way before it has to put in too much effort, which is maybe a little bit of a bad thing. I could probably tighten that up somehow, because it is a little bit loose. I mean, it doesn't have play. As you can see, it doesn't, as a matter of fact, most says the wiggling of the table, as you can see. But it's a little bit loose. Doesn't take much of an impact for it to just stop completely. The servo saver will kick in before this thing reaches its maximum torque, holding torque. So really, the servo that comes on it, unless you want more speed, you really don't need too much more torque as to what the servo saver can handle. Of course, the Slash VXL, you can see, does not deal with that little white servo saver at all. The servo saver, of course, is in the bell cranks themselves because it uses the four-wheel drive system. So, guess we can start to just wrap this one up. Alright, overall review. Awesome truck, durable. I mean, obviously, if you drive it like you hate it, it will fall apart and things will start to go wrong. Mostly in the skid plates, I think you'll be replacing them very quickly if you drive it really abusively. However, if you just drive it like a bashing truck, and I mean, you can bash this thing pretty darn hard, and it will just come out smiling. So if you just treat it like a good bashing truck, it's nice. If you break something, I don't know if there's a hobby shop in the United States that does not carry Traxxas parts. So that's always a good thing. Parts support is very good, because some of the other lesser known brands, you will be hunting and hunting and hunting to find parts, and when you do, you have to wait for shipping and probably pay more for shipping than a part, especially if it's something small like, say, a turnbuckle or whatever. And to give you another idea of kind of how durable this thing is, we have a trailer, just a steel trailer, and I ran into that thing so hard during a cartwheel that, as you can see, I dented and almost put a hole in the Lexan body. You see that right there with the glinting light. That's how hard I've run this thing into stuff. And it still comes out smoothly. Nothing is wrong with it. And nothing short of a landmine would take this thing out. Just under normal use, because it is such a nice little sturdy truck. It is nice. Tires, not very good. Suspension, not very good for racing. It's a bashing vehicle as it is. Motor system, not the best. And of course, put a Mamba Monster in it and you will get, that's pretty much everyone's go-to for power. But really, I don't mind this, especially when I'm not racing with anyone. About the only person I race with is my brother, my little brother, and he's 8. And he drives my first old RC. So, it goes about, it is respectable. I'll have to do a review on that one. Because that was my first RC. That's what got me into this hobby. So that's about all I race against. So I don't need anything that's overkill. And this suits the bill nicely. Goes through grass pretty nicely. It goes down to about 25 miles an hour from its top speed to 35 on pavement. But that's not too bad considering it's in 3-inch grass or more. At the moment it's more. And it just pushes its way through pretty nicely. So hope you enjoyed this review. And if you have any questions in particular about something that I didn't touch on, which was probably a lot, just go ahead and drop me a line, either in the comments section below or on the or on my channel itself, either YouTube messaging system, or any other way that you know to contact me. Bye for now.